July 13th, 2026, and I'm calling the Board of Health meeting to order. Would you like to make a mission statement?
Yes, just one brief announcement first. Don't anybody give any soccer scores. I'm 2 days behind.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to know.
Okay.
Nothing's on it.
You don't want to know, we won't tell you.
Our mission, the mission of the Board of Health, Falmouth Board of Health, is to protect and promote the health, safety, and well-being of residents and visitors of the town of Falmouth. The primary function of the Board of Health to achieve our missions are to prevent and control disease, enforce state and local regulations, promulgate local health regulations, identify and protect from environmental hazards, and advocate for a healthy community.
Thank you, George. Is anyone recording besides FCTV and Pathagent? No. Brief statement on rules of behavior. Thank you to members of the public to attending this meeting. Public comment will be allowed at my discretion as time allows. Will be limited to 2 minutes per speaker-ish. Before providing comments, please state your full name. All comments may be delivered in a manner that respects others. Does anybody on the board or the audience have a public comment on items not on the agenda? Nope, hearing none. Our first hearing is 227 Edgewater Drive West. We have a request to continue from the applicant, so that should be continued to next Monday, July 20th, unless we hear otherwise. Yes, we do need a motion.
Move to continue next Monday
Yes.
to next Monday.
Second.
Motion and second to continue, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Our first hearing, so that's that. There are various notes on that, and we will take it up separately. Okay, our first hearing is 348 and 350 Old Meeting House Road, IA Alternative Technology Approval Request for the installation of a clean tube. Make sure I have this. Okay, are they two separate? Are they, is this a combined lot? Okay.
Good evening, for the record, Raul Isali from Cape Analysis Engineering. This application before you is for a septic system that's located in a nitrogen-sensitive area. Currently, the site is 2 lots, lots 2 and lots 3. An application with the planning board was presented, and the planning board approved the project as proposed. The project will combine these 2 lots into one. Currently, this lot front, our front lot, is only occupied by a tree farm. There are no structures. The back lot, it has some structures, but there is no flow to those structures, so there is no septic system in those structures. What the buyer or the entity that's purchasing this property is intending to construct a new office building. And for that new office building, there'll be a new water service, and there will be a septic system. So there's a proposed denitrifying septic system. We are proposing the nitro leaching system for this project, and it meets all other setbacks of property lines and buildings, and therefore. So because we are proposing a denitrifying advanced technology, we require this Board of Health to approve the technology so that we can record it against the deed. And if there's any questions, I'll try to answer.
I'm going to motion to approve the use of the IA system for 348 Old Meeting House Road, finding that the 2 lots have been combined, therefore there's no variance for that particular thing from our regulation. That being the system on the lot served, that the IA system being used is on the banner list with the standard, and that there are no variances requested in conjunction with this request for an IA system with the standard set of conditions.
Second.
And that it meet 10 milligrams per liter.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the use of the IA system for the combined 348 and 350 Old Meeting House Road lots, finding that the septic system is on the lot served with this new nitrogen-sensitive area of this new construction. Any other comments?
Just a couple of questions. Are the, where the tree farm is and the landscaping contractor, are there other residual toxic chemicals or anything like that
So
that
no-
need to be considered?
Not to our knowledge. The site is currently a landscaping yard, and the potential buyer is also a landscaping contractor, so the intended use are similar. So I don't anticipate any of those changes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next hearing is 162 Sandwich Road, IA Technology Approval Request for
You again?
Clean Two. Metro, right? Metro? Yes, Metro.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Raul Izardi, once again from Cape Analysis Engineering, representing the applicant as the engineers and surveyors for this project. Similar to the application just before, this is a project where we are proposing to actually demolish an existing dwelling and in its place construct a two-family dwelling. For that, we are proposing to abandon the cesspool on the property and construct a Title V with a nitrogen reducing technology in the front of the property. The technology proposed here is also a nitro clean two system. The difference about this project is that there is currently flow on the property because there's an existing dwelling and we're demolishing it. There is an existing septic system as a cesspool on the property. We are abandoning it per Title V, and we're proposing all new requirements without the need for variances. There is another structure on the property, but it is a garage. It doesn't have water, so it doesn't have a septic system. So this is the only structure that will be serviced by the septic system. It is similar to the project before. It is a two-compartment Title V tank with a nitro system and a chamber leaching component. No setback variances proposed or required.
How many bedrooms of the two units?
So this is a total of 3 bedrooms. So one of the units is gonna be a 1-bedroom, and the second unit is gonna be a 2-bedroom.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Using the smart George's language. Administrative question. Can we start, or have we started, as we're approving systems and numbers of bedrooms, recording those numbers of bedrooms, so that if 5 years from now, someone comes back to us and says, we're not increasing the flow, we've always had 17 bedrooms here and 240 people, that we'll be able to say, no, you have 3.
This
Well, the
is-
permit-
No, I understand that's what this
We'll-
says,
we'll issue-
but is that gonna be in an easily accessible way,
Okay.
so that if somebody comes back and wants to modify something,
Yeah.
we can stop saying, we can't believe the records anymore?
Well, because you'll have this, so let's say they come back in 10 years on this plan, you'll have this plan as a permanent plan. So the problem becomes things from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Okay, is there a date after which we have confidence in, the assessor's form, for
No,
example?
no,
Is there a date after which we have sort of wide confidence in any public record? You know,
No.
you said
Other than-
60s and
other than-
70s.
other than the septic record on
Right.
file, which got
Septic plan.
better after probably roughly in the mid-2000s, when the agent finally required engineer plans. I would say the records from 95 on are fairly decent in
Right.
determining bedrooms.
Okay.
That's the septic capacity. How many bedrooms are actually in the house is never gonna be an answer. that's an possibility.
Because always, people will do things.
Well, I understand.
I mean,
But-
building permit records, let me rephrase that, building permit records since probably the last 25 years will be able to show through building permits what work was done, and a health agent would have looked at it and signed off on it. But, I mean, if you go back to something that was the basement finished in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, they'll never be around.
I'm excluding the stuff that you say is too old. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there is anything that's not, so this one, I'm sorry, this really has nothing to do with you, and
But
so,
something that could clarify is like, this vote that this board is gonna be doing is gonna be voting on this application.
yes,
Which is for a capacity of 334
Yeah.
gallons per day, which would not be able to fit a 4-bedroom, if that's a concern. Now, I don't know that we want to restrict what could be in the future. Regulations can change in the future. And if there's the ability of putting a system for 4 bedrooms and the ability to actually permit that, we don't want this permit tonight to prevent that in the future, if it's possible.
no, I understand that, and I sort of apologize for bringing it up in the context of this, but I just need, I can't just bring it up out of the blue. I need it to be brought up in relation.
I'll let you bring it up out of the blue.
Okay, in that case, move to approve this with the usual conditions, and 10 milligram per liter limit, and motherhood and apple pie.
And I'd like to add a finding that it's improving the system that was on the lot and not increasing the flow.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the use of the IA system for 162 Sandwich Road, finding that it improves the system on the lot, and it's not, is it not an increase in flow, or it's not clear?
We
won't-
have
we
no
don't-
record of what was.
we don't
approved.
know
We
what
don't
was-
know if it's.
Find,
an
yes,
increase
I would say
in flow.
finding that it's an improvement on the existing conditions
Yeah.
with, and there are no additional setbacks required.
There's no variance.
No additional variance required. All in favor?
Aye. Now, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to get at is, and I'm just gonna use this one as an example. We've now approved this septic system for a 3-bedroom
Yep.
total capacity. This has nothing to do with you anymore, but feel free to keep listening. So, 5 years from now, I buy it and tear down a couple walls and say, I've got 8 bedrooms. And I come in and I wanna, I don't
What do you
know,
want to
do a new
do?
bathroom or something.
They're gonna look at that building permit and
Yeah.
they'll say, there's only 3 bedrooms in here,
Yeah.
according to the.
We'll have a approved capacity from anything in the last 20 years. You're seeing things that still had cesspools.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I understand that. I'm trying to just say, I'm just trying to get,
We look at every
Because-
building permit.
Yeah.
And evaluate the building permit versus what they have for septic capacity. It's probably a third of what I do, all day long, is look at that.
So for example, I mean, not to pick on 162, but 162 Sandwich Road, there's no real record of the
right, no,
flow.
I understand.
And so 3 bedrooms is a reasonable,
Yes,
Now, do you want the
and I
reality of
understand
it?
that too.
The reality of it is this will use more wastewater than a 12-bedroom home on Penzance Point would in the
Because there's nobody, there's
Because
nobody
it's
there.
2 kitchens, 2 bathrooms, but two laundry
Yeah.
services. That house will use way more water than a house that's used 5 weeks or 10 weeks a year.
No, I
with
understand.
14 bedrooms.
I
So
understand.
that's where the bedroom thing to me always was kind of. a
Yeah,
weird thing,
that's
'cause we
why-
tend to have more wastewater flow in a 3-bedroom in Falmouth than we would a 5-bedroom.
All right, but it's all we've got, because it would be way too big brother to say, we wanna know how many people
But
are
that's what
there
Title V
every
does.
day, all year round.
well, I mean, we can, one of the things that we are moving towards and thinking about is actually, is combining the water use with an estimate
Yes.
of what actual nitrogen will be. Because that's, so the total load is the issue that we are going to have to deal with,
Right.
even though where all of these regulations are in concentration.
Right, but
So-
we have no, from what I know about basic physics and what I've learned about what knowledge and measurements are actually made anywhere, we don't have a prayer in the near future of knowing the actual mass of nitrogen leaving many residencies, because flow gets, you may measure the water flow in, that one's easy, but we get 4 concentrations a year, and from that, try to think
So-
about what,
We have somebody working full-time for the town, not for the town, as a contractor, going septic system by septic system, lot by lot, to get a rough flow of what's going
you
on.
know, I
In order
understand.
to calculate that,
Yeah,
they are doing that.
Right,
Yeah,
but
but
the
it's still
problem
not
is,
perfect
it's,
knowledge,
Yeah,
'cause the
it's not gonna be
imperfect
perfect,
sample.
yeah, it's gonna be not, I don't think it's gonna be a little imperfect. If you measure the concentration a couple of times a year in a not well-mixed place with a flow that's very intermittent, the error bars, which we won't have because we won't have enough samples to have error bars, we're not, it's gonna be a long way from anything that,
Well, let's hold this, because
Yeah.
the item number, or whatever it is, at the 650 item.
yeah,
So
okay.
let's continue this discussion, but
Yeah.
let's get the engineers off their clocks. So, lot 370 Schmidt Road. IA Technology requests new, am I on the right?
No, you're
Yes.
all right, lot
You're-
370 is Schuman.
Lot 370 is Schmidt, IA, for new construction in a Falmouth regular nitrogen area. Clean 2 nitro. Oh, yes.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape Analysis Engineering, representing the applicant on this project, as the engineers and land surveyors. Similar to the past 2 projects, we have a proposed structure that requires a septic system, and because it's in a nitrogen sensitive area, it requires to include a denitrifying technology. So this project, similar to the other ones, with one little exception. Unlike the other 2, this one, in addition of being in a nitrogen sensitive area, is also in the zone 2. It is proposed to be a 5-bedroom system, but the property has 60,000 square feet of land. So even without a denitrifying septic system, it would be allowed to have a 5-bedroom, but it is required to have a denied system because of being in a nitrogen sensitive area. The system is the same nitro clean 2 system, preceded by a 2-compartment Title 5 septic system. I'm sorry, this one is not a 2-compartment, this is a single compartment Title 5 septic system. And after the nitro system, we have a typical chamber leaching component. There is no need for any other variances, or any variance whatsoever. It is simply obtaining approval of a denitrifying septic system that we can record as a deed, against the deed for this project. Thank you.
And there's nothing there now.
It's vacant.
Just a comment while I have you guys, engineers, on that. One of the things that came up from the IA maintenance O&M guys was if these, since they have to sample from the D boxes, if you were to use the slightly larger D boxes or the baffled D boxes, even if you don't necessarily need the baffled D boxes, but
Like the DB9s, big ones?
yeah, the bigger ones, it helps them in their sampling, especially if they're down, 3 feet or 4 feet, because of the angle that they have to get a scoop in. So, it was just an observation that, I don't have my notes in front of me, but to properly credit him, which you remember who it was, right?
I think it was Mike Bissoneri.
Mike Bissoneri made, and it was a very helpful, it was a very good observation, that might be helpful for clients in the future.
Engineers in the room, is this something that costs $10, $100, or $1,000 as when you're doing it from scratch?
That's pennies.
Pen-
The deed
In the grand scheme, it's.
Okay, should we make it part of the conditions?
Well, you could do that, next time you do the regulation change, it absolutely should be,
Right.
discussed.
But in the meantime, could it,
You could do it on a case by case as you see your IAs. Yes, you could
Yeah.
ask for that, sure. Just like George is very, very good on the inspection plans.
yeah, so,
You
but
can-
what I'm saying is, can we just make it part of the standard conditions so we don't have to remember every time?
Standard design required recommendations? do we have design? We don't really have design
Well, you
recommendations.
don't have standard conditions listed in the
Yeah,
regulations, so
we
I
could
think you
have
should,
the
I think because it's not codified, you should just mention the request for it.
Okay.
I think you should.
Yeah, I mean, you guys seem to start to, it's just, it's not, you know, I don't think it's something we really, you know, it's not like this set in stone or set in concrete request.
easy
But it
and
just, if it's
useful,
easy and, you know, for these new ones, if it just helps the maintenance guys, because there's the sampling, since these are gonna be needing to be sampled for a while.
So the D9, what is
DB9.
DB9.
DB9, or
lot of
distribution box
different-
dash 9,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, yeah.
Well, do you
just
think it needs to
slightly-
be that large,
It doesn't-
George, for?
On these
Well-
systems, they're sampled from the unit itself.
Oh, they're sampled from the unit, so
Yeah.
we don't need it from the detox.
Correct, but I also have a question for our agent. This is a design question, so engineers. I didn't see it before, but I just happen to see it now. The way you figured your infiltrated surface, you did 2 feet of sidewall, you got your bottom area, but those boxes are not tied up against each other. So it's really not a trench, it's a bed. If those are up against each other, remember for a trench, what's the maximum stone you can have? Inside of 4 feet. So in between those trenches, it's more than 4 feet of stone, for if you had a simple pipe in there. So you're considering the whole length of those 3 together for sidewall area. And, I mean, it's not a too picky a question, it's an engineering question, is that a trench or a bed? If I were to look at it, and if it was awake at looking at the other ones, I would say, that's a bed. So a bed doesn't have sidewall area for it.
It's neither. It's got, in
It's a
Title
galley
Five,
system.
Title Five has a separate thing for galley systems.
Okay, but galleys have to be contiguous.
It doesn't
These are
specify
not
that.
contiguous.
It doesn't, I don't think it says it needs to be contiguous, but.
So you decide you could move those 10 feet apart.
No, 4 feet 8 feet max with 4 feet around it each.
Right, there can
No.
only be no more than 4 feet around chambers.
Yeah,
Correct, but you move the trench itself, you moving those components of your trenches apart. What's the distance I mean, why is it just, it looks like maybe 4 feet there now? It's not a trench.
no, it's not, it's a bed. It's on a
It-
bed or a
it's a
trench.
gallery system.
It's a galley system.
Okay, it's a galley system, but the galleys are not contiguous. They have stone between them,
Yeah, because galleys have a separate write-up in Title Five.
but they don't allow stone between them to consider it a single long trench. If the galleys are tied up against each other, you got it, bingo. That's a trench at sea, I
It is.
know, it's a trench. It's
Yeah.
a galley system configured as a trench, not as a bed. When those things are not touching one another, with a pipe running down through the middle of them, to me, that's no longer a trench. That's a bed system, a galley system configured as a bed.
I think the difference is you're saying one has to be a bed, a septic leaching field has to be a bed or a trench.
Yeah,
And the answer is no, they can be a galley system.
but a galley can be either as set up as a trench, or it can be set up as a bed.
So the way to calculate the capacity of a gallery system is based on side area and bottom area of the stone. Gallery systems are always accompanied by the stone. So the area for leaching is always calculated based on the stone that's in contact with the soil beneath the invert elevation, so always
That's
including.
continuous from the side of the galley. This is not continuous from the side of the galley.
But the stone is the one that is used for calculating the areas, not the galley structure itself. The galley structure just sits in the stone with no more than 4 feet of, a system could have more than 4 feet of stone around them for the
Okay.
galleys, but you cannot count more than 4.
So if I may, separation between units, 2 times the effective width or depth, whichever is greater. So a pit doesn't.
That's between 2 trenches.
Yeah, but no, you can't, galley systems can never be a trench, nor they can never be a bed. that galleys and pits are under 253, their own separate section in Title V. Pits, galleries, and chamber designs, effective depth max 2 feet. Surrounding aggregate 1 foot minimum, 4 foot max. Separation distance between units 2 times the effective width depth of whichever is greater. So it doesn't, I've always looked at pits and galleys under the pits and galleys and chamber section, not under a trench, or I don't apply a trench, or I don't
Those,
apply.
the galley separation you're talking about is between 2 rows of galleys.
So you apply to penetration chambers, not as a unit rather than to individually connected chambers or galleries.
For the benefit of our TV audience and me, could one of you give just a little tiny explanation of what the heck we're talking about?
Okay.
It doesn't have to be long or detailed.
You see how these are in a long thing?
Yes, yes,
They're in a rectangle, full of stone.
yes,
With 3 concrete structures in them.
yeah.
What I'm saying is, in order for that to be a galley in trench configuration, they would have to be touching, and they're not. There's stone in between them. What's worse, in my mind, is that the whole lateral side of that whole outside box is being used for the sidewall. Whereas, really, it should be only that sidewall, which is contiguous with the stone that is around it.
So this is calculating the
Sidewall
surface
area.
area for,
Sidewall area
for
primarily.
the water to get out, for flow
But-
out of the.
I would
out of
look
the
at this
s-
right away
into
and
the-
say, if I was
You got
saying,
1,000.
or was looking at it critically, I would say, this looks like galleys in a bed configuration. Because they're individually fed galleys, they're sitting on a big stone bed, and yes, they have sidewall, but you can't use sidewall in a bed configuration. When you put 2 lines of galleys, that's the spacing they're talking about. And that's really almost the same spacing as if it was a stone trench. It's either twice or 3 times, depending on whether you're going to use it, the interstitial area as a reserve.
This will be a different way of calculating the leaching capacity for this type of galley system. And we design hundreds of them this
I
way,
know.
and
I'm only bringing the question up because,
I don't agree with you, George. It's 2 or
Okay.
more chambers or galleys, connected in a series shall constitute a chamber or galley system. The application of 253(1)C separation distance shall be applied to adjacent chamber or gallery system as a unit, rather than individually connected chambers or galleys.
correct.
Inlets and then go into inlets and pits. I'm not gonna talk about pits, because we don't do pits. So we literally, we would allow normally, I mean, we could do things different here, but I mean, it's pretty common to put a separation of 4 feet. Because I would prefer the stone than having another chamber butted up myself.
The reason I use chambers is, let's face it, it's for the open area, for the storage line, period. And you don't have to, and you can get a bigger width, because you can go 4 feet each side of the width of that.
Yeah, they last longer too, yeah.
So, what's happening between those 2, between the galleys?
Yeah, but those aren't included in the sidewalk calculation.
They are.
so.
The whole outside, the
whole
whole outside
perimeter.
stone is,
The outside perimeter,
The outside
Yeah,
perimeter,
right.
not
but not the,
inside.
not between them.
but they're not in a line, they're fed individually. And I'm just saying, look, I'll go with this, because you say it's common practice. But I think if we really ask what a trench is versus a galley system that's in bed configuration, this to me looks like a in bed configuration.
So if these 3 tanks, the question is whether the sides facing each other are part of the diffusing capacity. That may be
Correct.
the wrong word. So the farther apart they are, I would think the better, because if they're up against each other, then then there's no question, they can only go, but they're not helping.
They're not doing it.
They're configured like a trench.
I believe you, but, so you want them to be far apart? Is that
No,
correct? In a
what I'm
galley?
saying, if you're gonna consider this a trench, you'd probably put one more of them in, feed it from the end, or feed it in accordance with Title V as far as the total spacing. They'd be butted right up against each other. And I would contend that maybe you do this very frequently, but I've seen more commonly butted right up against
sure.
each other.
They're more common to see it budded, it's more about when the space,
Okay, so if you see them butted up, why the heck would anybody butt them up? They butt them up because now they're a trench and they can get the sidewall. If you space them out, they're not butted up and you gotta use them as a
well,
field.
I
And
guess,
then you only get bottom
when
area.
you're designing it, sometimes you need a certain width, that the fourth chamber would end up with 1 foot of stone if you added the fourth chamber or whatever. So sometimes it just makes it seem to flow better in an engineer's mind. So, yes, you could have put one more chamber and then cut the stone back, or something like that. So sometimes you see it because of the constraints of the lot, and you've got a rectangle that you can fit in that conforms. And then you try to take the chambers and make them in an equally flow as best as possible, because sometimes adding that extra chamber now you need a variance, so now you have to scrap the 2-footers. So the
No,
two-
you just feed it, you can feed it out of the D box once every, what does it say in Title V? Every 20 feet.
Yes, but what happens if your trench can't be more than 33 feet, or whatever 3 chambers are, 32.
So you're feeding it 2 places, you're feeding it on the end and 20 feet
Yeah.
down.
But sometimes you can't, sometimes you put 2 and not 3, because you can't fit, you don't have enough to fit the 8.5 foot.
I'll give you
Good
that,
chamber.
I'll give you that argument, however, in both these cases, it's not the case. These are,
So,
the question
Let me-
I'm asking is technical, it has to do with Title V, and maybe that would be something you ask somebody. But for common practice and what we're looking at tonight, I'm comfortable with approving it. I just don't think it's, that this is a trench. I think this is
I
a
agree,
bed.
it's not a trench. Well, then they get 0 sidewall.
They get 0 sidewall and they use bottom
That
area.
doesn't, yeah, that's.
Or
that's not the
you throw
industry
one
standard.
more of those concrete things in there, jam them up against each other, feed one in the end and one 20 feet down, and you got it. Because if you already have 3 feeds,
so,
But physically, we're not doing any change.
yes.
If you physically introduce another chamber to butt them all against each other, that's the way you're thinking of allowing the use of the perimeter area as
Sidewall area.
sidewall.
Correct.
That perimeter stone is still the same perimeter stone that we currently have designed with gaps between the chambers. When the effluent is reaching the leaching field, it's reaching the same stone, it's reaching the 2 feet of height that we're allowed for chambers. So leaching contact between the stone and the soil, it's still the same.
yeah, I was gonna say, George, what's the?
So there's
The stone is
physically
the
no
leaching.
different.
All a chamber does is create void space.
Thank you.
That's all it does.
But it is contiguous void space, just like a chamber system. You don't take plastic chambers and say,
So,
I'm
So,
gonna leave a
but
couple out here
think
and
about
call
but
it.
let's think about this sort of as kind of a, like, physical thing. I don't see that there's much difference. What is the difference between having these in the configuration they are and allowing the sidewall calculations as they are, and having another chamber there? That would then just make it as I guess it would be in a bed, a long bed configuration.
Okay, it goes back to what chambers are, how they work in Title V, how they were intended to, because this is how they were approved, galleys as well as plastic chambers. You have a long contiguous area, it's fed from one side except 20 feet, you have to have another feed into it. It actually fails the bottom along the soil profile and creeps up the sides. Here it can't do that. You're not using the sidewall the same way. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not even saying engineeringly it's poor. All I'm saying, I don't believe it complies with Title V, technically, because right now, the way that looks to me is a bed. And if those are all contiguous, bed on one end, 20 feet down another one, that would be what is defined in Title V as a trench system. And if you put chambers in there, it would be chambers design and trench configuration, as opposed to bed configuration.
But going back to the idea that this would be a trench configuration, practically no chamber would be useful for a trench configuration because a trench by Title V cannot be more than 4 feet.
That's right, that's why you use chambers, so you can get that extra 4
Right,
feet
and
on
it's-
each side.
As soon as we have galleries, we have a width over 4 feet, almost as a
Yes,
requirement.
Yeah.
So chambers, in my point of view from the regulations, chambers are not intended to be calculated as
Right.
trenches, period. They are allowed to have up to 2 feet of sidewall, and it's spelled out. And there is no prohibition of the chambers being gapped within the same system. If there's a separate, completely separate system, then yes, the application of 2 times the width or
yes.
height would apply if they're completely separate. This is all one system because the stone makes it one system. The stone hydraulically will have everything working together. And I think that's why there's so many systems installed this way, and they've been allowed to use side area in addition to the bottom area, and not just the bottom area as if it was a bed system.
I got you. So I'll end the conversation, but my opinion is that if you showed this to somebody up in Lakeville and said, how would you call this? What would you call this? 3 chambers, and the chambers are separated by, looks like about 4 feet. I don't know, I didn't scale it out. And if fed individually like that, is that a bed, or is that a galley system in bed configuration, or is that a galley system in trench configuration? I'm gonna bet that you'd have a 50-50 split, and people would say, looks like a bed to me. So, but for purpose of moving along, and purpose of the fact that this is commonly done, it's not gonna kill anything here, but I think at some point, we ought to straighten it out.
Another question for the uninitiated. Are the bottom and sides of these chambers permeable?
They're open on the bottom and
These
holes in the
chambers
side.
don't
And
have a
holes in the
bottom.
si- Okay.
The chambers
So
don't have
if, what I'm trying to, and when you calculate the area, is it the length and width and height of the stone that you're calculating?
Length of stone,
Yeah.
width of stone, and height up to 2 feet or below the invert,
Right.
no more than 2 feet.
Okay.
You could have 3 foot of stone, but you
Okay.
cannot count the
So
3rd
it,
foot.
I could see that, as I said before, if these chambers were close together, so that the surface area of the chambers is irrelevant to any calculations?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. And now I fully don't understand it, thank you.
Yes.
For the record, Zach Basinski, professional engineer, Bracken Engineering. George is right, I had that come up one time up in Pembroke, and it was more of a venting concern through it, so they just had us vent between the chambers. But this is an industry standard we do here on the Cape with the venting, so that was the only time I've seen it off Cape when one person questioned me on it. So that's in 20 years.
Well, that's what it is. Okay, I'd say we move on.
Okay, so
we
Kevin,
motion.
motion did his, yes, well, we don't have a motion yet.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's,
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve it.
Well, approve the use of an IA system for.
Yes. This address with all the standard conditions, and if it's useful with a bigger distribution box for sampling, and if it's not useful, then no.
Right. George, any
I'll
second?
second.
Okay, motion and second to approve the use of the IA technology for lot 370 Schmidt Road, with the standard set of conditions and 10 milligrams per liter of mercury. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's been 8 years since I've seen him. I see him all the time on perk test. I see him.
Not been 10 years.
I haven't seen you forever. You never call, you never
Probably
write or
this.
anything.
I only see him on Zoom now.
I don't get out of the office anymore. It's sad.
Just appeared.
Turn pale.
Is this a new form we have?
My phone's
Oh, okay, maybe it's not, I
This
just,
is a different one. This is
For what? For what?
yeah, no, I
No,
know.
it's a different, this.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Acknowledgement thing? I can't see.
No, it's okay, it's for the,
Got it.
it's for,
Yeah.
School Street, which we'll get to a little bit later. Okay, 65 Walker Street, Title V request, new construction with a setback 10 feet, now 6 feet. And various other things. Oh, IA system.
Hi, for the record, Zach Basinski, again, professional engineer, Bracken Engineering. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicants. 65 Walker Street, if you would leave the parking lot, take a right, it's right through the woods, right behind us there. Existing two-bedroom, single-family house built in 1966. This was in front of the board back in 2004. At that time, they did an upgrade from the old cesspools that sat very close to an IVW in the backyard. They put in a galley system right in the front yard. They were given relief at that time down to a 7-foot front yard setback. This project has been recently purchased by a new owner. They're looking at tearing down and rebuilding the house. They initially had come to us, they were looking to do a 4-bedroom design on the house. After going through the research in 2004, there was a condition that the house was to stay 2 bedrooms unless a relief was granted through the board. So in front of the board to ask to increase to 3 bedrooms with the installation of the Clean 2 Nitro system. This is outside of a local NSA area in town based on the GIS that we saw. So, based on that, and putting the Clean 2 in, we did nitrogen loading calculations that were submitted. It goes from 10.6 parts per million down to 5 parts per million, or 52.7% reduction, even though there's a 1-bedroom increase in flow on the lot. We are asking to maintain a relief to the front yard setback. We're meeting all the other Title V requirements of the 50-foot setback to the IVW and the coastal banks on the lot. And we believe it's a vast improvement over the project. And any questions?
Just for the record, you will note that the chamber's here.
I brought it up.
Or put it up. Why would they waste that concrete?
Scott, I have a question. Can we condition it on the use of no nitrogen, no fertilizer?
Yeah, you can do that. It's just,
I just don't know if we're-
how I would.
We have
How would
in
it
the
be
conservation,
forcible?
that's in the conservation order of conditions, they have the Falmouth friendly lawns, and they have a condition in their order of conditions of no nitrogen for the lawns.
What is Falmouth friendly lawn?
Falmouth
It's part of the
friendly
nitrogen
lawns.
bylaw.
Yeah, there's a nitrogen.
Oh,
bylaw.
okay,
friendly.
oh, all right, okay.
6 inches of lawn, special type of grass.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a drought resistant grass I don't know about? Because I've
I
planted
don't-
4
hey,
times in my
that's-
backyard.
I give up, yeah.
Jen tells me to put it down, that's what I put down.
Different Jen. The other Jen.
I'm sorry, is the additional bedroom a different unit or just increasing the size of the,
Just increasing, yeah, because we're gonna demo the house and rebuild a new house,
okay, new house, single family?
single
Yeah.
family. Yep.
And I do wanna note that this is not a nitrogen sensitive area because, Siders Pond, has remarkable denitrification because of its depth and the conditions of the pond, and it's not anticipated to change, and also the inputs into it are apparently not an issue as well.
How deep?
It's like more than 10 meters, I think. It's surprisingly deep.
Wow.
It's got salt on the bottom. Yeah. There's a friend of mine is studying it.
Didn't realize it was that deep.
It's really, yeah, there's a spot in it that's really deep. It's like saline down the bottom, so
And when that pond flips,
it does,
No, it's not.
it very
Did you
rarely
do the
does,
plan?
though, right?
I did.
once every 5 years.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you,
Yeah, they do good plans.
thank you.
Yeah, especially when he butts those chambers right up against
He's gone, you can't
In my 20 years, George, I have that back in my head still.
Well, George doesn't know, he's approved 7,000 plans, he's probably got about 40 of those now.
I know, and it didn't even occur to me, and I don't know, maybe I had too much coffee, too late in the day, but I just thought, man, what the heck's going on here? And I looked back at the plan we just did approve,
Same thing.
yeah. So anyhow, I would motion to approve the nitro system because it's on the banner list for 65 Walker Street, finding that it improves the situation on the lot, removes nitrogen, and with a standard set of conditions. I mean, it's nice that they're doing it.
And with either a D-box or some other way to,
Yeah,
Make sampling.
coordinate with Maureen and John.
Yeah,
and
I believe the
take this
nitro
sample.
system
Doesn't
has a
matter.
sampling port in it.
In
okay.
the packets, huh?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the variance, requests for the setback 10 feet down to 6 feet and the use of the IA system, for the new construction, finding that it's not in a nitrogen sensitive area, and that it improves the nitrogen removal on the lot with
Yeah.
standard set of conditions.
Even though it has an increase in.
Right. 10 milligrams per liter nitrogen loss. Is that an accurate
Yeah.
restatement? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And, sorry, just make notes. Okay, we have 93 Harbor Hill Road, which is an error, and in fact, it's not the Woods Hole Child Center, it is the Woods Hole Daycare Center, a daycare cooperative, and so we are continuing that until next week.
That was definitely my mistake, I had that, I had the one I used to inspect all the time in my brain when I wrote it.
Okay. That brings us to 158 Westwood Road irrigation well variance request. And.
There's 21 Pheasant
Well, that was taken off, they relocated the well to stay 50 feet, so that was in your 276 packet,
Oh,
but
okay.
since they redesigned the location of the well, we found it.
Okay, so we need,
So we're on.
So you're just on 158 Westwood, which you should have a plan.
now, are you here for,
No, I'm just,
you're just here?
He's just saying, because he loves to torture himself with
No, it's
Fine
because we're so
detail.
entertaining and much better live than
Snug
on
Harbor,
TV.
wait,
No
Westwood Road.
Yeah.
Ah, 158 Westwood Road.
it's either here or go home and talk to the wife.
I hear you, that's why I'm here.
no comment.
My wife has upstairs for the foreseeable
They should be
future.
much later than you will.
Oh, God.
It's a long agenda.
No, it's not gonna, it's not unpleasant agenda, okay. This one, here.
Yeah.
I think I made some plans.
You did,
You did.
you did. It just, it's snacking through, because I didn't sort my agenda from last time. Okay, in this, oh, you have been. Westwood Road, okay, so. Where's the septic system?
There actually is the septic system and the reserve is kind of weirdly,
Yeah,
that's strange.
It's in the front lot.
Oh, in the front, and they wanna put their system. What was the distance is this fine, right? You can't tell.
This one here is the actual engineered as-built of where
Right.
okay? So there's your design plan and your engineered as-built. And I wanna put the well in the other corner of the lot. Let's see. Refresh your mind there, because
They wanna put the well down
in the front corner of the
the
lot.
front corner of the lot, and that is.
They're on the water. I provided you the neighbors, okay? Sorry, they're not all attached.
Yeah, no,
The neighbors is on the other side of their lot, so there's more than 50 feet to the neighbor's lot. Who's not following, I can show you, if you can't see it.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Distance.
So the butters, which is lot 211, which would be the one to the left of the irrigation well,
So it's
is about
158
70 feet.
that matters.
There's nobody,
It's this one
yeah, so his septic, yeah, the SAS is like right here,
for them, and his
His
SAS
SAS is over
is
here.
over there, right,
and they both have 50 feet.
right, oh, okay, that's
Yep.
fine then,
Okay.
right. I know, we just need to change these regs. All right.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the well variance request for 158 Westwood Road. Do we need a finding? No.
Don't need one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Other items. Okay. IA system monitoring,
I don't think I have anything else on that other than,
I'm in the process of revising this for you, George.
yeah, good.
And I've just, I'm writing grants, so,
Did you see that?
Yes,
If you want to send me any particular
Yes,
comments, I'm gonna circulate it to my own staff.
you're right, I am, I'm actually, editing it rather, rather aggressively.
Aggressively,
Trim it down.
geez, you're not aggressive at these, boxes being spaced apart. Okay, yeah, just send.
Yeah, no, I'm just trimming it
Yeah.
down, because I think I'm trying, I don't know if I'm actually gonna be able to get it down to 2 pages, but, I'm
I
trying
don't
to.
think you will. 'cause
No, I
looked
think
at
this-
it and said, I'm gonna be at least 2
Yeah, Mike's on
pages
vacation,
before
so
we
it's gonna be the
do
20th.
Yeah.
I'll talk, sorry, before we go any further, you have to keep your packets from the 6th for the next meeting.
Which
Or
one?
give me, because Mike Borselli couldn't make this meeting when
Oh,
we
right.
canceled it.
Yeah,
Is this the only one we had?
Mike had 2, plus we
Two.
would talk about, so anything with Falmouth Engineering's letterhead,
Yeah.
you wanna keep. And anything with 227,
Yeah,
and I'll go through it, yeah, you can keep that for the next meeting, the rest you can get rid of what you got through.
okay,
Unless you
so
continue.
that's all I had to say, please send me comments
okay,
on this.
Yeah,
After you get,
will do.
after you get the grant.
no, you know what, I put it in after I get it, God only knows, this is the third time I put this in?
So you're in line at least.
Hey, third time's a charm.
NIH, God only knows, 10% success rate, it's a crapshoot. Okay,
I have something.
yes,
So George, I've been sending you some emails,
Yeah.
wastewater treatment services giving you like an involved narrative on every property they maintain. And I've just been forwarding it to you, I don't know if you want me to do anything specific, is it like?
Keep doing that, I'm gonna look at them and see what the common thread is and how we wanna proceed. I'll come back to the board and suggest a path forward.
Okay, alright, because they're a little bit long-winded for everybody in the board to get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right.
Okay.
I'll summarize what comes in and get to the board with what I think we should do. Proceed.
you know what I probably should do with this, George, is, I know this is mixing, I guess this is, I have a C grant, which is, which reminds me I need to talk, I emailed Brian, we need some more F-line. But,
I'll give you all the info.
yeah, but there's a graduate student who is very good at designing things. And it's part of the C grant to basically work on this sort of things. So I might, she's coming down tomorrow, so.
I don't own it, it's just, that was burped onto the page within about 2 hours.
Yeah, so I might, I might stick her onto this because it would be helpful, I think.
Okay,
So maybe, I'll talk to you after the meeting, and maybe we'll, come up tomorrow. Okay. Then we have, discuss the watershed planning responsibility management entity letter and draft framework, which is from the Water Quality Management Committee. And, I have lost my draft of this.
Here's-
No, it's got mine and yours.
Oh,
Here it is.
that's,
Right, mine's, here's mine. Were you, did they discuss this at the last
I
meeting?
missed,
Okay.
I
very
believe
last
the one was canceled.
There was
Yeah.
one
They were
canceled,
going to
and
and
then
then
there was one gonna be last week, and I did not make it.
And neither did I.
Okay. So I haven't checked, I sent some comments to them. So they have a letter, which, they would like the select board to send, and I don't know the status of their discussion. But then they also have this draft, which they want DEP to, as a straw man,
Yes,
the
straw man
DEP to
vote.
shoot down or not. The challenge that I have with this particular draft is that it is different than the way we talk about and have talked about things. Their sampling recommendations are different and would require a different change in our regulations. There's sort of a number of different things. So if I could sort of step through some of my concerns, just so that I can,
Before you do that.
yeah,
I think the main purpose of getting something up to DEP isn't to show that the town has concurrence among boards or anything. They're trying to get some response from DEP. They've got 0 response so far,
right.
and they just want some reaction. So rather than trying to smith this or change it, I'd say their board came up with it. I worked on it a little with John Waterbury, but I'm sure their board hammered different details out. I'd say let them send it up to DEP, because basically all this is to do is say, open a dialogue with us before we spend a lot of money putting something in a plan, and you're gonna shoot it down.
Well, I want to be very clear on this. This is the Water Quality Management Committee, which is advisory to the select board.
Yes,
So that the select board needs to take this up, and the select board needs to send this.
yes.
I think it would strengthen the argument of the Water Quality Management Committee if the Board of Health takes a look at it and says, this is reasonable. And I have some things that I think in it which are not as reasonable as our look at things. Yes,
instead, since it's a quite short document,
yes.
and you have some comments, rather than talking about whether we should talk about it,
Let's just
why
talk
don't
about
you talk about it? And we don't have to change anything, and right now, all the Water Quality Management Committee is looking for us to support, is sending the letter to the select board.
Right.
So what the select board is gonna send to the DEP, if they choose to do so, we've got time on that, but since it's only 6:30 and a whole bunch of things have been tabled, but I have to admit, I haven't read this yet, although I do know some things about it from having been to the meetings.
So what would you suggest?
Well,
That
I have
that if you've got
questions.
5 things you want to say them, rather
Okay.
than discussing whether we're gonna say them or not.
Fair enough. So I just have some questions, that, since George, you were, you know, the way we have been talking about a responsible management entity is that it's not necessarily a town department. So
Not, the key word that you just said was not necessarily.
I understand that, and that's why, so we've been talking about a responsible management entity as possibly like subcontracting to the county, for example.
It's a matter of semantics, because this says, if you read it, I'm sure you did, the RMAB will be responsible for conducting or engaging public or private contractors for the task of, and then it goes on to see what the entity would do. So what they're really saying, I mean, they say, if we engage the county or any other private industry to do this, someone in the town would bear some responsibility for oversight of that. That would be the responsible management entity. The subcontractor could do all of the work, but somebody in the town is the management entity, some responsibility, some department. And I think there's a number of models you could do. You could say, we just say, we're gonna hire a responsible management entity and just let them go. Who's gonna oversee the work of this private contractor who will do quite a bit of very expensive work, comprehensive work for the town? Who's gonna be the oversight for it? Is it gonna oversight itself? Or are we gonna trust that it does itself? Or is it gonna be somebody in the town, some department in the town that takes some initiative to say, what are you doing? I need to know exactly how you're proceeding and doing all this.
I mean, I think it's not unreasonable for that to be the case. I just, you know, it's different language than we've been using.
Right.
And so I just wanna clarify within the
Yeah.
different boards that are then going to be talking to the select board,
Yeah,
what the hell we're talking about. So it does make perfect sense that there's some town entity that is the
yeah,
responsible entity.
even if it's the town manager.
Right, it doesn't matter who it
This
is.
is,
Or
this
the
is gonna be a pretty big and comprehensive, if it does monitoring, reporting to DEP and all these other things. They better have somebody in the town who's on the
Yeah.
hook for it.
As
Right.
Chance would have it, a representative from the Water
Right.
Quality Management Committee has just walked into the room. And
Convenient. We're running early, so,
You are, obviously.
right, we're running very early, which is good.
You're on RMEs?
We're
Yes.
already under our MEs.
Oh, wow.
And so, we're going through some parts to this. Where else do I have it? So, in terms of the actual discharge, again, the question is, the calculation, I mean, if we're 10 milligrams per liter of total nitrogen, what are we assuming for removal of total nitrogen? Because, I mean, I know DEP is gonna nitpick some of this stuff. So
Yeah.
to say, if we say at least 75% removal, is that, are we
Is 10 milligrams per liter equal to what we believe is
75%? Or are we looking more at like what we're anticipating and what the Banner systems are, more like 90% removal? And so that's is 75, putting a number in there sufficient to meet our requirements? And I think the answer is no. And so I don't wanna get,
Well, let's back up and look at Banner. standard is, you said 90% removal?
Well,
So if they assume 90% removal, they're assuming all influent values at 100, because now it's
It's
down to 10. 90 to 10 is, 100 to 10 is 90% removal. So this does not assume that it's
that high.
that high. I think,
If
you
it-
know, either way, somebody's gonna argue, well, 75, that doesn't seem like a whole lot. But if you're getting down to 10 and you started with 100, you've got 90. But you could play the game and say, oh, I'm gonna insist on 90% removal. Well, 10 milligrams per liter from, say, 50 is 80% removal.
Right.
So, I mean, in there,
Well, the other thing is, you know, we need, there's a certain amount calculated with a certain amount of nitrogen removal needs to be. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's getting hung up on 75%.
yeah, you could say if you wanna take the 75% out, take it out. Because there's gonna be systems for sure that aren't gonna make 10.
But then-
And on further investigation, we'll see that, hey, they're coming in at 150 and they're getting down to 10. And we'll have to make a decision at that point, what percent removal is really appropriate, rather than put any percentage in here,
Yeah.
just say 10 milligrams per liter.
Right, that's kind of where, I mean, I understand you know, the impetus is to go for a total nitrogen number,
Right,
because that's what we really need to meet, even though the flow is what
Yeah.
everything's based on.
it all should have been done on load, but we know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we
And
know.
we can cry
Right.
about that until
Um,
the cows come home.
The other thing is I don't necessarily want to require that IAs be chosen from DEP's list of best available nitrogen reducing technologies, because we already know that a composting toilet, properly managed, is essentially, is 100% removal. And we've already permitted one.
Time out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't jump to that. It's not 100% removal.
Properly managed, if you remove everything from the site. we
All you're removing from the
Resist.
site is the poop and pee. You've still got gray water at
Gray
10
water.
milligrams per liter.
That's true, no.
And also.
Okay, thank you, George, for correcting that.
To the degree that the DEP doesn't accept that as a technology, then it doesn't matter how good it is if we can't count it in the watershed plans. That's my understanding, maybe that's incorrect, that the only two things that we can count in the watershed plans as doing anything for nitrogen are IAs and sewers. And it doesn't matter how good urine collection is, I've forgotten the words.
UD, yeah.
Yeah, urine diversion is, if the state says, we don't care how good it is, you can't count that.
See, I'd like to just take a step back.
So we don't think we should worry about it.
All we want to do is open a dialogue
Yeah.
with DEP. We want them to respond to something. This deals with IE systems as they know it. They know what an IE system is. They don't have to worry about urine diversion, they don't have
Right.
to worry about composting toilets. I'm not saying that that should not really be worked into the plan, but I don't wanna give them something to knee-jerk right against because it's not familiar to them.
Well, what I was
I'd
saying
rather
is,
have them see, all we're talking about is setting up our RME for the town of Falmouth as part of the watershed plan. And will you please, with big capital letters, make some kind of helpful comment to guide us so that we don't spend all the money with the consultant to put it in a plan, only to have them come back and say, it's deficient. Let's talk beforehand. That's the whole purpose of
right,
it.
well, but that's what I'm saying, is if you take that out, that line out,
Which line?
the IAs must be chosen from DEP's place list of best available nitrogen reducing technologies as defined by DEP.
Yes.
it allows them to, if they really want it, put it back in again. But if we don't, I don't wanna get locked into that. If DEP says, yes, this is great, use this.
Well,
Again,
but this
we're not
is,
locking ourselves into anything, because this is to open up the dialogue. And if they see something like, oh, they bought into our list, that's good, we'll talk to them now. We have common points to go forward with. And then at the table where you're sitting down, before you spend all the money putting it into a plan, only have them put a big deficiency across, you've got some input from them. It opens the dialogue.
two comments to that. One, this is about IA systems. It's not, this paragraph is entitled IA systems. It's not about, even if your diversion was gonna be part of it, that's not what's in this paragraph. So I don't see any harm in saying we're gonna.
No, I'm not,
And
I'm
the
not
other
saying
thing
anyone
is-
in your division in this, so.
Yeah, no, I know, so I don't see much advantage to take that. Also, I am agreeing with George, and the other big thing that my understanding is that they're after is that the, doing the randomized sampling and getting the comments on that.
Right.
Because that's where.
Where you spend
Yeah,
money,
no,
first of all.
Yeah, and you gotta have some method of how are you gonna do sampling, and that's the biggest thing I think they're looking for comment on.
So the straw man says, every month for a year after that,
Yeah.
yearly. If it hits outside the bounds, we keep it in the pool for the next 1/12 of samples. That's all it's saying. And maybe somebody would say, that's stupid, it's not even statistically sound. I would come back and say, show me why not.
Right, or show me
So,
something
sure,
that
yeah.
is,
My question
suggest
is,
something.
my question for George is with an IA system, is sampling it every month as it spins up reasonable? Are you
Yeah.
actually gonna, or is it more reasonable to do the quarterly sampling that we do?
Oh, absolutely, it'd be better to do it quarterly. But we're now applying IAs in context of a watershed management plan that has a TMDL, so we better give them something other than what's in their approval. If they take quarterly, they may come back and say, hey, we don't think you need to do every month, why don't you do quarterly and sample a third of the system?
Well,
Again, it's
so,
to
but if we say-
open up the dialogue.
But if you say quarterly for 2 years, that's fewer samples, but it's a better representation of the functioning of the system.
One might argue the other way around.
Well, that's my question.
Based on the data I've seen, like coming from Schubel, one good year gives you pretty much something you could say, forever and a day until somebody dies in that house and they sell it, that's gonna do these numbers. It's so stable.
But that was my technical question to you, is not, is the, you know, the, every 12 months, as it spins up and you get seasonality, a better representation than quarterly for 2 years?
I believe it is.
That's fine,
But-
that's.
You know, the nice thing about it is, you know, you get a 1 year of the full cycle. You pretty much know what's gonna happen with that system.
So the challenge is that we're wrapping in our existing systems into this management entity.
Yes,
And so the existing systems, which have been at a different sampling frequency and are governed by a different regulation.
correct.
So,
We're gonna have to, as we talk to DEP about this, say, okay, we've been approving these banner systems now for a year and a half before you even come back to comment for us. We're gonna suggest that we have enough data on these systems to go right into into a 1 and a 12 month. And they may say, no, we want more data on those. Then we say, okay, the town's gonna have to pony up something for that. Because right now, what's the Board of Health got? We've got DEP's, whatever, and even the quarterly sample for 2 years. You know, that's a strain on people. So I'd say as we go forward with this, the data are gonna be presented to DEP also. We're gonna say, look, here's what we did in Schubel, here's what we have in all our systems here in town. Can we come to some sort of modicum of a sampling plan that is, won't break the bank, but will make you comfortable. Again, this is only to open up a dialogue because they have made zero comments of what the sampling will look like once you drop these things into a watershed plan. They just haven't said it. If they come back and say, just do what the statement of approval is, I would say, thank God, where did that come from? Because 2 years ago, you were talking about monthly sampling for everybody. And then you backed off and you said, well, if it's seasonally, we won't make them do it, and there's no, still monthly, really?
Right, well,
We're
that's
gonna
what-
do that monthly? And that's all we kept hearing. So now we're saying, can we come back to something, how do we get you to the table? If you notice where the copies of this letter are going to,
Mhm.
is it to legislators to say,
Mhm.
we need help? Before we spend a lot of money for your big rubber stamp that says, no, thank you, we would like you to come to the table.
Right.
It's the only thing.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out if there's some medium on the probation period, but just because it's just gonna be lots and lots and lots of sampling as these things go in and.
Well, there's a couple of things we're working on. One is the TN sampling. TN right now, as you know, TKN, nitrate. It's a pretty expensive set you have to do to get TN. We believe that, according to international standards, we could use a single digestion to get one TN. It's less than half the cost of the whole series.
Right.
It gives you all its
All the-
nitrogen. It's a digestion.
Right.
It's at the same thing you do your TKN for. You get a TN at half the price. We could do more sampling.
Right.
Already have gotten approval. The test center for NSF is approving it. They're saying, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because the quality assurance is the same as any standard lab.
Right.
You're doing spikes, you're doing replicates, you're doing interlaboratory calibrations, so why wouldn't it be good?
Right.
So
And,
we're-
and NSF in this case is,
National Sanitation Foundation.
right,
Thank you.
right. Sorry,
I have the other S.
I should have said NSFI, because it's really National
Yeah,
Sanitation
okay.
Foundation.
And the other
International.
advantage of doing something that costs half as much, but on twice as many systems, is given the variation we've seen in systems in your data, I would say more systems less often might be more useful than a smaller number of systems more often, because they seem to either be working or not, and.
That will work out when we
Yeah.
sit down and we can show them data
Yeah.
sets,
Yeah.
large data sets.
I move that we support this letter.
right, there's a couple other things though, because again,
Okay.
these are
For
specific.
discussion
For
purposes.
discussion purposes.
I'll second for discussion purposes.
What are your other?
Well, there's
Which paragraph again?
operations and maintenance.
Okay.
Operation and maintenance is only listed on an annual basis. We know that that's not sufficient.
Operation maintenance, again, must be maintained in accordance with DEP standards. In addition, annual nitrogen monitoring described will be, the RMA will inspect the control panel and other above-ground components twice yearly, either by means of remote sensing or on-site examination. Makes sense to me.
An annual system inspection includes operation and maintenance shall be performed by vendor trained under contract. It just says annually.
Under operation and maintenance, I guess I might be reading another version, but it says RMA will inspect control panel and other above-ground components of the system twice yearly, either by means of remote sensing or on-site examination.
An
But the
annual
next-
system inspection that includes operation and maintenance of the system shall be performed by the vendor, technicians under contract to the Army.
It's
within reasonable-
internally inconsistent paragraph.
I see what you're saying.
Now, unless we wanna feed things to DEP that we know they're gonna wanna correct, then sometimes there's
It's not a bad idea. Yeah,
and then the septic systems will be pumped every 5 years. Again, I don't know if that's appropriate, again, will be pumped at regular intervals. Like specifying that it's 5 years is again something that they can pick on. If you don't give them a specific time, but you just say regular intervals, then it's a regular interval.
again, I would think that when you give this to them and you get comments back, you can address those comments. I'd like to see anything come back from DEP, which gave us some guidance to how we should set up IA systems in context of a wastewater management plan, watershed management plan. I haven't seen anything. And you know, I thought, okay, well, it says it in the Pleasant Bay, but it doesn't. The Pleasant Bay plan doesn't even have it in there. But of course, Pleasant Bay, I'm putting what we're putting in at least 1,000 of them, IA systems.
In Pleasant Bay.
No, we will be doing that. Pleasant Bay isn't putting in that. They're putting in maybe 300.
It's still a lot.
They're not even gonna get to that. They're gonna start working over the fertilizer stuff.
This is
shellfish
where
stuff.
Pleasant Bay,
Pleasant Bay is Eastham, Orleans,
okay.
Harwich.
Okay.
They were the first watershed management plan that spanned towns that was accepted.
Okay.
They actually, in that plan, conceded DEP to quarterly sampling. So they may come back and say, yeah, okay, just quarterly will be fine. I don't think so though, because, like I say, there's 219 proposed in the watershed plan for them. I don't think they're worried about 219 systems. They're gonna really focus in when we say, oh, there's gonna be 2,000 to 3,000. You're gonna say, well, let's figure out how to sample these things. They may say the same thing. Again, all we want is some cue from them where to go. Because watershed management folks are gonna wanna give this to their consultant to help write these plans. And, you know, if I was an engineering firm, I'd write something in there and wouldn't care what DEP said. Because whatever comes back and I change it, I'm gonna get paid for that. But why waste the money? Have them to the table first. And that's the whole purpose of this.
Right, I just want to make sure that we are sending them something that
Makes sense
we,
and
that
it's
makes sense,
consistent.
that we are comfortable with. And because because if they say, yes, this is what we want, then we're stuck.
Well,
And because if we go back to them and say, oh, we're gonna modify this, they're gonna say, no, what you sent us first time is what we want. So I don't wanna get stuck in their heads, you know, that we are proposing things beyond what we're comfortable doing.
okay, so when you say we, as the
Town.
Board of Health comfort, we're comfortable with what DEP has for their regular approvals. This goes beyond that for the watershed plan, and that's what we have a Water Quality Management Committee to knock these things about. Are you guys comfortable with it?
But I think you're, you know, and I apologize for not being here when you started the dialogue on this. I didn't think you guys would be this fast tonight. But I think you're looking at the RME draft that I think, George, you
Yeah,
and John
John.
Waterbury worked on a number of years ago,
Right?
and it got shelved,
Right.
basically. John had initiated a discussion at Water Quality Management some months ago on this, and for a lot of reasons, it kept getting kicked to further meetings because we kept running out of time. But at our meeting last week, we did approve a letter to Bonnie Heupel, the Commissioner of DEP, that is gonna be going probably tomorrow to the Select Board, asking them to forward it under their authority to the DEP, and, you know, it's 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
Very brief.
We got it.
Everything's-
And-
Oh, you did, okay. Now
If
that,
I can, I was working with John earlier today. We've tweaked it a little bit, but I can tell you what those tweaks are.
on the letter or the RME?
The letter.
Well, okay, because we gotta be careful here. This letter was approved by the committee unanimously at our meeting last Wednesday with a couple of minor English language
Well-
editorializing that Tom Duncan did, sent to me for final thing, and I was ready to send this to the select board tomorrow to, through the proper procedures, to Heather Goldstone, to ask them to consider sending this on, and it also is copied to Dylan Fernandez, Dave Fiera, and Thomas Moakley. And you have that letter, okay.
Did you also look
Aye.
at this, because it's referenced in the
Well,
letter?
it is referenced in there, the copy I have, it says draft 6/7/26, but it actually goes back probably 3-4 years or more. So I think the Oyster Pond discussions that your board had back when John was on it,
Right,
and correct me if I'm wrong, and there are issues with the technical jargon in that, like I came in when you were talking about 75% or at least 10 milligram per liter, da. Because I point out that your board, Board of Health, has implemented a rule that any new construction flow increase shall put in a best available technology at 10 milligram or better.
right.
And the only ones out there that meet anywhere near that are only under
Okay.
conditional approval. Nothing has been given general use approval because the data just does not support it. They want 90% performance on 50 systems minimum, and no one has achieved that. Nobody has the 50 or,
Correct.
so, you know, it's a ways from happening, but I think earlier tonight you were scheduled to have 4 or 5 hearings on people putting in nitro systems.
They all went in.
And I would expect they would, because they meet the regulations you have defined. The purpose of the letter, as we, as the water quality had been discussing it, is to, hey DEP, water quality in the town of Falmouth is planning watershed plans. A key part of that is IAs. A key part of IAs is the enforcement and implementation of policy that rests with the authority of the Board of Health. Basically, as I see it, water quality is planning, Board of Health is implementation. But you have to work together because you can't have one without the other. And the key point here is to initiate, hey DEP, let's talk. And we actually put in there, after much discussion, we'd like to get some feedback by October 1st. What I'd love to see is a person or 2 or 3, whatever, at DEP be appointed as, this is your baby, work with the towns. Beyond the details, I understand what you're saying, Jed. Geez, if we send this and they say, great, we're kind of stuck with it, that's really not what we want. What we want is look at this, and I think we specified that it is a draft, and let's talk about this. I have asked personally to contacts at DEP, I think, George, you have too. Can we talk about RMEs? And the silence is deafening. That's all we see. I'm looking to accomplish with this. Get on record, send it to them, say, hey, let's talk. And with the reps and senators being involved, hey, if we don't get a response, guys, what can you do from the legislative side to push them? Because this is key. You're telling us to do it. Help. We don't know what to do to comply with you.
I see your point, Jed, that this is stricter than what the approval letters say. And if we give this to them and they say, hey, love your draft, we'll take that, that's the way to go. I think your question is that what we want to be saddled with? And I would contend that if you're gonna prove for purpose of watershed protection that these systems work, you do need something a little bit more robust than quarterly sampling, just of everybody for 2 years.
And I mean, when you told me that technically speaking, you're the expert in this, then that's and we've talked about seasonality in the functioning systems and all that, and then I'm fine with that. I just am looking at, what an annual O&M sampling cost is to run these on a quarterly sampling. It's running up around $1,600 a year. And so, in order to make this a financially viable solution to our challenge, I want to think about this because in a broad scale way, because if one of the things that we have to have is voter acceptance of this, and because if the voters say no, then we throw these all out. We got to go start over in certain areas. So it behooves us to make this, to try to thread that needle
Yeah,
of the one that is scientifically defendable, something that the DEP will say, that sounds reasonable, and yet also something that is cost effective, cost efficient. It's a hard needle to thread.
yeah.
I agree. I think one of the points that we need to do is the Water Quality Management Committee is advisory to the select board. But these plans will be binding to us to the Board of Health as well. And so, we need to think about a joint meeting with Water Quality Management Committee, possibly also with the Ponds Committee, to think about, and maybe this is will be an opportunity for DEP to come down, and we can let them talk to us, and provide that input that we need. I like your idea of having somebody as a direct point of contact for these, rather than just sort of firing off into the void of the commission's office.
Technically, there is a person who is, what OSE is supposed to be our representative for the watershed planning on Cape Cod. I personally have never gotten any responses. I don't know whether you've had any luck or fortune to do it, but I just haven't got it. So I think that's the reason why they wanted to step up and do a little bit more than just send a letter to DEP, but to wake up the legislators to say, this is important.
Oh, no.
We really need you to direct somebody to do this.
No, I think it's really important and very helpful to include them in this loop, and I think by going to the select board and the, personal connections that
Yeah.
various people have with, I see various these individuals on a regular basis.
Don't get me wrong, I think that there is still a lot of work to do to look at the data that are out there to form a better plan for implementation of a monitoring. This is a good shot just to get to the table. If they're at the table and then you say, by the way, we looked at monthly data from 30 systems in Barnstable, and we did a Monte Carlo to select 4 random from each one. We did 10,000 runs, and in those 10,000 runs, you would conclude nothing different from monthly samples than you would from quarterly samples. Here are the data, here's what we think, what do you think? But you're saying, what do you think, to somebody across the table, who's from DEP is gonna say, yeah, that didn't make sense, or, no frickin' way, we'll have our own stats people do it. I say, fine, dump the data, let's see you do it, because we did it. You know, things like that, it's the exchange to work this thing out. Not saying this is the ideal plan, but it's a plan, and we're not getting any guidance. The only guidance we got was from Brian Dudley, who said monthly sampling every system. And he said, well, that kind of is off the table, that blows out 5,000 systems monthly. Give us a
It's
break.
ridiculous, right?
So, okay, then it sort of backed off a little, but no one gave us the imprimatur on the sampling plan. So we keep bouncing back and forth, quarterly, monthly, random, no, combining them, or what if we go watershed and combine all the sampling? You know, there's 100 different ways you could do it. That's a little hyperbole. There's probably half a dozen ways that you could look at these data. One of those ways would give you the truest estimate of what's going into your watershed. You know, who knows? It may be something totally different. Maybe we need to put good water meters on everybody in that thing that automatically, like the water department proposed a couple of years ago to put them all in everybody's house, put some towers up so they could monitor the water in there and get the real water numbers rather than assumed water numbers. We just need to have some discussion with DEP, rather than just going out and hiring somebody to write up a plan that gets.
No, I agree, and I just, like I said, I want them to come back and say, that's great, use that, with that, if it's not something that we're, like,
Yeah, no, I get you.
um,
You don't wanna be saddled with something just because you wanted to get a reaction out of it.
so that's why I was suggesting a little bit more vagueness in certain places. Because if they want something, they can put it in, and if not, we can be vague. But,
I agree. So, I think what they have for a proposal here isn't so onerous that we couldn't do it. It would be certainly, they always talk about this being an iterative process, but whatever, the adaptive management. So now we start sampling these things every month, the new ones every month, and we find out that the data is so darn stable you could walk on it, it's a straight line. We go to them and say, look, the data's stable. Let's do some creative management here, and maybe we'll go to quarterly, maybe we'll go to once a year. Maybe these types of systems, we don't do that, but we have at least 50 here that are rock stable. Until somebody moves out of the house, dies, or sells the house,
the problem,
we
yeah,
assume it.
the problem is that we know that things aren't, even with the quarterly data that we have, they're not stable.
Well,
So,
we would know, I mean, I wouldn't say that all technologies are the same as far as their stability
that's
goes.
true.
I mean, if you look at maybe the fast units, wide variety, variability. You look at the Advantix, a little bit tighter, in fact, it's a lot bit tighter. And some sit, even operators, some operators we've seen. So I think this is a good start. I think we gotta get off the ground, we gotta do something. And engaging DEP couldn't hurt. And besides, we'd actually get to see who does work on the watershed plans with the towns from DEP, because I haven't seen them. And you would think that at least they would be going to a few of the watershed management meetings and saying, hey, towns, here's what we're gonna expect. Even if you only got them to come and do that, it'd be way
So-
above what we're getting now.
All right. So, does any, I haven't seen, since you wordsmithed the draft, I don't know when this draft is from,
The letter,
the letter.
the water
This is
quality
the one that
letter
was
was
approved.
finalized over the weekend. You know, but it
Okay,
was
so
submitted
this
and
is-
approved by the committee last Wednesday. This is the
Right.
cover letter, not that detailed
Right.
thing that goes back 5, 6, whatever years. And the key thing there is, short and sweet to the point, and put a
Right.
timeline in there saying, hey, we'd like a response by October 1.
Does anybody
And
have
here's a
copy of
draft,
this?
and I think a key word in there is, this is a draft.
All right, so this is not, so this is, we have something from a number of weeks ago.
Okay.
Do,
It's changed very little.
It's
It
cha-
basically
Yeah.
puts a date in.
There is a change from the draft that I think you have, and that was just as of today, because I didn't get to it over the weekend. And that is to add a sentence after the,
You talking in the letter
I'm talking about the letter.
or in that
No, I'm talking
attachment?
no, I'm talking about the letter.
Because here's the final draft of the letter.
Oh,
And, this has already been voted and accepted unanimously by the committee, ready to forward and will be forwarded. The only change was like, basically punctuation and spelling maybe type things, editorial changes, no change in content. So that is,
Right.
And that letter was drafted over several meetings.
no, yeah, I understand, I've seen this.
You know how that goes.
So you've added a date, I just, because if we were to vote to support something, I'd like to actually see the draft of something, because we can support it in concept, but, I think it would help. It can't hurt to have us support
Oh,
a letter
absolutely.
that you
Or
guys
to
sent to
send
the-
another letter to the select board saying, hey, this is where you see the main concerns. And as I said earlier, we're looking at the watershed planning. And the first couple of watershed plans for the simpler watersheds in Falmouth are in pretty far along, and Amy just presented them to us last week. The bigger ones are all being worked on. The plan is to submit something by year end or early next year. It's the first, hey, here's a water, and it's extremely detailed. Other communities that have submitted them and have them under consideration now, I think it's Wellfleet, it might be Tisbury, I think there's 2 watershed management plans that are in the approval process at DEP. They've done the NOI, they've done the initial draft, I think Wareham also, and they're very vague. Wareham says, well, we're gonna do some sewering, we got a problem, we're not sure where we're gonna put our outflow, because we got this outfall that is not working well and can't be expanded. So that's how vague it is. I think it was Wellfleet said, there's gonna be some IAs and probably some sewering and using the treatment plant in Provincetown. No details beyond these very vague statements. And if DEP says, okay, these are starts, they're now past the comment stage. So agencies and the public have submitted comments, and I expect within a month or so, a decision will be on, here's your plan, here's what you gotta fix.
Right.
So watching closely to see, what are they doing? I like the idea of being as vague as possible, and to what you said, Jed, don't lock yourself in too tight. And also understand that these are living documents. 5 years down the road, you gotta review where you are and what tweaks may be necessary, either to make it tighter or less stringent, because it's working so well.
Right. I'm also thinking about this, when is this plan due to the DEP?
The submission of the watershed plan,
Yeah,
that is, we had committed to a deadline of the end of this year for the first one. The active consideration now by Amy and her team is to lump a bunch together and say, here's a bunch, instead of a.
there were gonna be 4 of
couple-
them, I think, that were going.
Yeah, I think there was gonna be 4 submissions over
Yeah.
several years, starting the end of this year.
Okay,
That's getting some tweaks now to maybe put more in, and then initial submission may not be till early next year.
okay. Just because, this RME, as it's written, will require changes to regulations, both from the Board of Health. There may be changes to zoning, or certainly likely to conservation regulations. And so
Quite possibly.
I think if we can demonstrate some coordination across the regulations, it would also strengthen, strengthen the plans and demonstrate the commitment of the town to the plans as presented. So, thinking about this in a coordinated sense as well. Yes, John?
I think in both the case of certainly in the case of the letter, we're not dictating to the select board what letter they should send to DEP. We've simply sent them a draft. They're
No,
free to
I-
change it in any way they want.
Right.
The RME goes back to the CWMP for Oyster Pond,
Right.
which the town never submitted. And we spent a lot of time, George put in a lot of time. What we were trying to do with that draft RME was to make the monitoring scheme affordable. In
Yeah.
other words, if we have to do, we can't make this work.
Oh, I totally agree,
And,
yeah.
and so this was a model which we thought was perfectly reasonable. And my feeling is, let's send it up to the DEP and get their reaction to it. They know that in our watershed permit, there will be an RME. And if we send this up and they say nothing, when we send up our watershed plan with an RME in it, developed from wherever, we can say, hey, we sent this up to you in August of '26, asking for your comment, and we got nothing.
Right.
So now you're forced to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, you know, some of the questions, like I said, was to try to thread the needle and whether or not 6 times a year is defensible scientifically versus 12 times a year, but if we really need seasonality. Oh, you do have it 6 times a year,
Yes.
sorry,
Every month.
every other month, not every month.
I think the important piece
Yes.
was the 1/12 of all
Right.
Yes.
every
Yes.
year.
No, the
And-
random sampling, and defending that with a Monte Carlo
Yeah,
sampling approach.
simulation.
I mean, simulation with, you know, maybe even with data that we have to
Yeah.
return, if it returns 19 milligrams, you know,
I
For
think
the
the
one
question isn't really, we have a large data set. Question isn't whether they return 19 milligrams per liter.
is
The
what they.
question is, by sampling this scheme, would you have made a different conclusion as far as your watershed loading between the two methods? And if that difference isn't justified for cost, then you say, take the cheaper method. You know, if you could do 1/12 of systems and get the same result as you would doing this other more intensive scheme, you wouldn't conclude anything different than take the 1/12.
Okay.
But we don't even, I mean, it isn't even worth the exercise if they don't make any comment.
Okay.
Now, and if that's the case, I think, if I may, the next step would be, hey, Dave Vieira, hey, Tom Bulkley, what can you do to help us get this thing and get a response?
Because this is,
They give us-
your constituents are gonna be picking up the tab.
Right.
Yeah, and people are already spending significant money complying with the recent Board of Health regulation. You
Yeah.
gotta put these IAs in. And, you know, that's a basis for going forward, but we need some dialogue with DEP. What are they gonna want? And they've been deafening. Nobody answers.
Okay. All right.
I think the next step would be just to endorse a letter like this, saying,
We endorse the effort of the,
Yeah, the Board of Health understands the letter going out to clarify blah, 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 with DEP and to engage them in some draft planning for IE systems to save the town money of submitting superfluous drafts. And the board is in full support of this. That's all, something like that.
You've been very nice verbiage that I haven't captured.
Sorry, because I couldn't
So-
repeat it.
This is my recordings. Yes, and you're sending this up tomorrow or Wednesday or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's ready to go, I just gotta put a cover memo and send it to the chairman of the select board, that's the methodology.
Just for your information, the select board typically, the chair, vice chair, and town management meet Tuesday mornings to talk about the agenda of the following agenda. So if you get it up to them,
Tonight,
yeah,
Well, they're meeting tonight, and they're meeting again in 2 weeks, I take it.
they are meeting in 2 weeks, yeah.
So when they
They're
have-
scheduled for it. They-
Yeah, that meeting you referred to where the chair and vice chair meet with the town manager, is that the Tuesday before the Monday of the meeting? In other words,
packet,
not tomorrow, but next Tuesday?
the agenda is developed over the course of 2 weeks
Okay.
and starts almost
So-
immediately in response to the meeting the night before.
Okay, so it's tomorrow.
So, yeah, so if you could let them at least know.
Yep.
Ideally, you don't necessarily need to send a perfect draft, just let them know that it's a time reasonable sensitive, because you don't wanna get, the challenge right now in terms of timing of things is that the warrant closes, August 7th. It closes very, very quickly, and so there's going to be a lot of other items stacked onto the agenda. And
absolutely.
if you want this to go in a timely manner, because otherwise it could get booted to the end of August, and you don't want that.
Understand, so it's not a busy outfit. I talked to Diane about how to do this and how the procedure goes, and she explained that. She didn't say it was on Tuesdays, but she said town manager, assistant town manager,
Yes.
select board chair, and vice chair meet to talk about business going forward, and,
So just to give you a timeline that,
yeah, Tuesday is the day usually.
so,
Okay, thank you for that.
and once you guys go in, we can figure out from the draft from this recording, I think George will send a letter. I mean, I can send it on behalf of the board if that's
Sure.
acceptable.
I motion to send them a note just saying we endorse the effort.
Okay,
Second.
okay, motion and second. Well, it's just 3 of us.
In favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll send it as chair. Aye. I'll send it as chair. so. Okay, now, is there other things besides that we can do? And I mentioned trying to schedule a joint meeting to discuss what coordination efforts would be helpful. Are there any, and I know that the chair of the select board is interested in that. So, are there things that we can do?
Well, what are the critical things that we would need to discuss, coordinating?
You know, if I may again, Mr. Chairman, the rest of the board, I think one of the things that I think both committees, or your board and our committee, should look at is that draft from back in the Oyster Pond plan days, and start tweaking that to more current thinking. You know, like I came in and you were discussing the 75% versus the 10. Things like that. Start going through paragraph by paragraph, because that's gonna take some time to update this and make it fit the regulations you have in place and those you anticipate going forward, and how that fits into any changes in the regs, and also the watershed management plan, which
Right.
we are trying to move forward, because we have to as a community.
Right.
So, you know, we currently have placeholder, I've reserved the select board conference room for Wednesdays at our usual time, the 22nd of July, and then so on until the first week of September. So those are our planned meetings. We may not have all of those because of people's vacations and what have you, or lack of anything pressing, but, you know, if it's a possibility to piggyback and have part of one of those meetings a joint
Jed?
Yes.
My understanding is that through the Department of Public Works, with their consultant GHD and ScienceWare, Scott, I believe you're on that working group, and there are a number of other people that are developing the actual watershed, draft watershed plans. So that's an internal group that's working.
Right, I mean, I'm thinking about, like, we're clearly going to need to change our regulations. We had a discussion about, an item recently that's being continued to next week, that is relevant to, in terms of the requiring or not, an IA system, is relevant to this, to a watershed management, basically. And so we need, I think it would be helpful for us to be able to sit down with an agenda and to actually talk through some of these issues. So.
One of the other things which you might consider is Amy she presented 2 draft watershed plans for Rand's Canal and not Gansett,
Wild Harbor.
Fiddler's Cove.
Wild Harbor.
Wild Harbor. And it might be really instructive the next time she schedules
She's mentioned to come at a future meeting.
that it would be useful to your committee to be in the room when she presents those draft watershed plans.
Yeah, she plans to come here.
Come to your meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And they are very detailed,
Oh, yeah.
very, very, very detailed.
All right.
Yeah, she will not be at our next meeting on the 22nd, but we are planning to meet at this juncture, so this probably
Okay.
will not be a presentation unless Kristen does it, and she's been the key point
Right.
person from ScienceWare in developing the plans.
I
Yes.
think it'd be useful to hear those kinds of things together, because we could both learn, especially me, from other people, your comments on what gets presented, as opposed to, she presents to you, you folks make your comments, she presents to us, we make some comments, but we don't get the advantage of hearing each other's,
And
which
asking
can
questions.
often be the most substantive
Doesn't seem to me
part.
to be most productive to ask her to do it twice.
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
yeah.
Busy
So-
folks.
So I'm gonna do it. Do you not want her to come to future board health? Do you wanna try to schedule this joint? I'm
B
just sending
would be
her an
my
email,
choice.
that's why I'm asking.
Well, she's already presented the 2 that are mostly
Okay.
done, so,
I'll just send it to her.
right, we'll work on this.
For one she hasn't yet presented, I would,
Maybe it makes
say
sense to
in-
do a joint.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out a time that
The
works.
ones that
for-
have been presented, again, excuse me if I may, the ones that have been presented are up on the website, so wastewater
Right.
management website, so you can get a look-see and start to scratch your head and say, what the hell does this all mean? Because I certainly do also. And it's very instructive, and you try to formulate questions and maybe concerns, if any, because, Board of Health presents a different perspective than water quality. We're looking to plan, you're looking to how the hell are you gonna enforce this thing and implement it and make rules? And both are equally important, and one can't work without the other. So I think it's very important to bring the Board of Health perspective to the table.
But one critical thing that would be enormously useful for us is people come here and they want a variance to do something in in an area that's within one of the watershed plans. And they say, or they don't say, we don't want to do an IA, or we are willing to do an IA, or we don't want to do an IA because we know we're gonna get sewered, or we might get sewered, or somebody's gonna get sewers. If we have no idea when those things are gonna happen, or at least an idea that there's no way anything beyond Great Pond Phase 1 is gonna happen for at least 15 years, that would be very useful to us. And from what I can see, there is no way any more sewers are gonna get done within the next 15 years or even 20 years after Great Pond Phase 1, because it depends on an outflow pipe, and for that to get built, and then something permitted, funded, designed, built, and then for some other sewer plan to get funded, designed, built, everybody connected up. I don't see how that happens to, I mean, you guys know more about this than I do. Everybody in the room knows more about it than I do. But is there any way that's gonna happen in less than 15 or 20 years?
It's possible if the outfall's key, otherwise we don't have discharge capacity.
No, I understand
The-
that.
If the outfall proceeds as planned, it's probably 6 years down the road to actually being functioning and built. Now, that happens, you don't have to wait for that to be flowing to start planning and looking how are you gonna pay for Great Pond Phase 2. So you don't have to wait till 6 years, let's say, the outfall's working, and now you start planning. You can plan ahead of time.
But,
You
yes.
can try to figure out how the hell is the town gonna pay for it, along with all the other things on the list. And so it could happen in, 15, but I don't think much sooner than that.
My perspective, I'm Steve Rafferty, Precinct 2, private citizen.
And gladly,
Happily private
But
citizen.
keep in mind that we're gonna file the watershed plans some point within the year and a half, or whatever. That sets off a 20-year clock in DEP for implementation, so we can't just keep kicking the can down the road.
Right.
My instinct is that we will have the permits we need for the outfall by 28. We're pretty far along. We've got a draft EIR, and the consultants now are working on things like Chapter 91 and other Army Corps of Engineers permits. They've been, released to start putting that stuff together. And I think Amy's got a date to go to town meeting for funding. And the target is to have the outfall functional by 32. Okay?
6 years.
Yeah.
And the outfall DEIR was submitted in June, published in Environmental Monitor last Wednesday at 5 o'clock of all times, and has a comment period for agencies and the public to comment ending August 21st. Sometime 30 to 60 days after that comment period ends, so we're talking into September, maybe October, the commissioner will issue a decision, what do we gotta do? Hey, it's great as is, or, oh, you gotta do this, this, and this, and here's additional information and changes you need to make before you submit your final EIR.
Right.
So that's a pretty
So
quick timeframe.
That's a quick timeline. I mean, I think this sort of information is very helpful to have collated or discussed in some way to provide feedback not only to town management, but sometimes disappears from public view.
There is.
But also to the affected boards and to
Right.
town meeting.
Very important, and if I may add one more thing, and then I'll shut the hell up. There is a public information meeting this Wednesday at the high school from 6:30 to 8:30 on the outfall. For anybody and everybody that is interested, has questions, or just wants to learn more, go to the high school this Wednesday. That's how soon, public information session rather. So the opportunities are there, and there's been a lot of attempts to spread that word, it's on the library, I think some of the libraries have it, it's been posted at MBL, and the neighborhood associations have broadcast to hundreds of their members that are on their email list. Blasts have gone out. Hopefully we'll get a good turnout, but come on Wednesday night.
The key issue that we have that is a struggle almost every meeting is person X is coming in, and do we want to insist that they have when they do their modification of their house, and they're on, what's the name of the street right next to the, sorry?
Edgewater.
Edgewater, yeah. Do we want to insist that they put an IA system in that is gonna work for 20-ish years, as opposed to a regular Title V septic system. Because they're not gonna get a sewer for probably 15 of those 20 years at least.
So,
What's a wise thing to do?
I realize that you're in a situation where you'd like to give definitive responses to individuals. The process we're in is that, you know, before this year ends, we will have draft maps. And then along with that, there's going to be a development of schedules and budgets, okay? And then there's gonna be a process of putting that in front of the town. So until we get towards the end of this year, and we've covered all of the estuaries, and we've got a draft schedule and draft budgets, you're in an area where it's difficult for you to make a decision. And I don't know how to make it undifficult for you right now, because I'm a private citizen from precinct 2.
Yeah, and it's difficult for us, and it's really difficult for the people who, and I never know what we ought to do. Every time I think about it, I come to a different conclusion.
I would tell you that if somebody's got a septic system fairly close to the water, regardless of whether they're gonna get a sewer in 20 years or not, and they're invested in their property, putting in an IA will be of benefit to the estuary,
That's usually what I think too.
okay?
Come to our meeting next Monday.
Okay, are there any other comments on this? All right, we'll send a letter. I think we should, both boards should plan on a joint meeting to, at some point or another, we'll figure out exactly what needs to be in that joint meeting besides Amy presenting to us. So, all right. Thank you. We still have a few items left on this.
Alan, did you get to say whatever you wanted to say?
Yeah, it's covered.
In order to get through this, the last bits of this agenda, I think I'd like to request that the plastics
Absolutely.
form be
Continue.
continued.
So moved.
Second.
A motion is, and a second to continue the discussion of the waiver form used for the plastic production regulation be postponed until Amy's here.
Next meeting.
We'll put it on the agenda for next meeting, but it's gonna be a very full meeting, and so,
Very full.
okay, so we'll probably say
Okay.
two,
But
at least 2 meetings.
just one request related to that. If when we discuss that, you could tell us how many, since the regulation went into effect, how many establishment inspections have been done and how many waiver forms you've gotten.
So how many food inspections were done?
Well, how many?
What fraction of the food inspections needed waivers?
All.
All of them.
Yeah, yes, so how many is that? And I don't expect you to know off the top of your head.
280-ish. Okay.
That
I'll
have
get
been
you-
done?
Well, inspections have been over 1,000, but you're talking me establishments that get permits is about 250 a year. And
Okay,
all of them
but
need-
how, so just at the point when we talk about this, as of then, how many have been done and how many forms have you got?
Thank you, gentlemen. The next item is the current well regulations and the application process. We've talked about changing the well regulations and providing, as we have a demonstration, providing the authority to the health agent to approve them. Do we want to just, I mean, in order to amend our regulation, do we need to we need to have one hearing to amend the regulation?
One hearing for that, septic's 2. So if you don't have anything to amend it to, other than if you want to change the 50 to 10, or whatever else you want to do in there, so it's up to you guys. But you don't have a draft regulation yet.
No, We just have the regulation.
We just have the re-regulation that we would propose a draft to.
Yeah. Then we'll post for public hearing.
Do we've talked about this several times.
On the chief one, there was only really one big one, right? And that was the setback
Setback.
property line.
Right. I mean, so if we just wanna send it to 10,
And you don't need a draft if you're just doing that.
right,
And that could be the subject of a very short hearing at one of our,
Yes.
at one of our meetings.
we just have to, he just has to post it.
It has to be, yes.
I'd say that's the way to do it.
Then that's fine with me.
All right, so
Okay.
I'll put a posting in a public hearing for a meeting sometime in August, because
Sure.
you're pretty thick right now for stuff.
On the
And you'll
20th,
have
we're
to
busy.
publish that portion of the regulation referencing the 10 feet.
Right,
And
Yeah, I
say
can take
we're
care of
gonna change it to 20 feet or whatever.
What do you want?
No,
10, right? Or
From
50 to
From
10?
50.
50 to 10.
50 to 10.
Yep. Yeah, I can make that, and I'll post it in a public hearing for dates.
Okay.
Okay.
good.
I just,
Yep. Do we
we
need a
don't really
motion?
have we don't really have a schedule that far out, but I think with Amy, you don't wanna do that anyway without Amy, right?
No, we,
We should probably talk about what our August and stuff like this when Amy comes next meeting.
yeah,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that way I can post it for, let's say, August X.
yes, post it, so it'll be sometime in August. It can be towards the end, it's fine, it's not a.
Yep.
Okay, so do we need a motion on that one? I think
No,
we-
because it's gonna be a hearing
It's gonna be
where
hearing.
we're going to propose this change, and
Yeah,
the
but-
vote will take place at that hearing.
Sure. Okay. I'd like Amy's input on the base, this is her area of expertise.
Move that we continue.
However, I'd like everybody to think about this in the context of the possibility that we're redistributing a pollutant to the surface. And in our current regulations, it says, in areas of known or suspected contaminations, such as exist in certain areas near the Massachusetts Miller Reservation, initial testing of irrigation wells for contaminants shall be required prior to use. Irrigation wells must not exceed the maximum contaminant levels set forth, gives a specified for contaminants referred to in section 1D. So I don't know whether or not 310 CMR 22 has been changed to add PFAS to that, but I want everybody to consider whether or not, I mean, we would require anybody with an irrigation well to test for PFAS, and if they have exceed the MCL, not to, to require them not to use it.
Should we, if we're gonna do that, would it need a hearing, and should we postpone the 10-foot change?
Yeah,
So
we
we
do
can do it
see-
together?
It would be added to the regulation.
We can, well, but this is part of, it's already part of the regulation. I was quoting the regulation. And this is discussion of the fact that we now know.
That, I think that reference is for drinking water, because that's a drinking water reg. This is specific, that section's specific for drinking water?
No. It's specific to irrigation wells.
Yeah,
It basically say the irrigation.
it's under irrigation wells.
All right,
It's
so
under
it
irrigation.
needs to be drinking
It's
water.
also drinking water wells, but
Okay,
it's under both. And so this is triggered by the fact that we now know, based on the maps provided by the joint, in the draft explanation of significant differences for PFAS from fire training area 1, we now know that what their maximum, the fact that there are large areas that are exceeding the MCL.
there is another
So-
solution. We haven't had Doug Carson
Yeah.
pay us a visit for an update on the base. We could schedule that and then ask him that question, or we could ask him that question as his thoughts on that
I think we should ask him that. That's a good point. We should ask him that on his thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll talk to Doug.
Okay. Yes.
Doug Carson's been the person responsible,
Right.
primarily the engineer, for the entire cleanup of the joint base cause since I've been here, so.
Right.
So there's a little hook in there that we're talking about existing irrigation wells.
Right.
They may have been tested, initial testing of irrigation wells shall be required. We don't require that they sample any other time in our regulations.
That is correct.
So we would have to say, add a section of our regulation, upon discovery of new contaminated areas, all existing wells in those contaminated areas must be tested for contaminants discovered, something like that. And we have the owners all in file somewhere, right, any of the irrigation wells?
Things that I have, I mean, irrigation wells from previous administrations. Of course, everything that we've issued since I've been here, yes.
But in any case, we can, but part of this would be publicizing,
Yes. If there is a plume, it is made up of this, you have a well in that area, consider the public health risk of using blah, blah.
right, and,
We ought to see, the county does test for PFAS, right?
yes,
And they had a program, so.
yes, they do, they have
We
a-
should be able to, whatever we publicize, direct people to where they can get
yes,
it in.
they do, and it's not, it's not one of those things that needs to be tested instantaneously, because it's,
Right,
you don't have to hold it on ice or anything like that, so.
They can just add the bottle to our test kit.
Right.
So,
I don't know if they do it out of the standard bottle that they collect now.
I
Toss it out.
don't know the answer to that. I think it may need, because
If
it's.
they do gas chromatography, can't they just throw it the same sample?
Well, the problem is that the sensitivity, the concentration levels have to be so low, I don't know what the volume requirement is. So, that's the only thing.
and so, if I'm reading this correctly, as new things come along,
yes,
Right.
we
are
can
people
require,
required, and have we ever done this? I mean, new things have certainly been coming along. What's
We
our
have not.
standard for,
we have not, we only required an initial test
Right.
to make sure they weren't
And
contaminated.
it's
So-
also, we also have it in our Title V rights for drinking water and transfer of title. So
That's
if you have a
true.
drinking water right, you
right,
have to test it,
drinking,
test for
but
title.
not irrigation?
And it-
So, when was the last time a list was generated of what needed to be tested for in irrigation wells? And are there other things besides PFAS that have come up since then?
It was specific to the plume areas that we noted, because what happened is the base would run water, or the town would run water to people that discontinue the use of the wells for a while. Then they'd say, oh, what if I use it for irrigation?
Mm.
So we tested for whatever that plume was,
Right.
that they were, took their
So,
drinking
so
water.
for the largest part, it was chlorinated organics. And as Amy has noted, those tend to sink,
Hmm.
but the PFAS, the perfluorinated stuff,
Spreads.
it spreads, because it's aqueous film forming. But her also expertise is in this, that she commented to me that there's already an awful lot of it spread around, so the question might be,
Matt.
right, how much more contaminated is the surface going to be by pumping this up?
Right,
And it's a reasonable question to ask, and she
Sure.
has the expertise for this. So,
It'll be-
fortunately, but having Doug's input on this is, I think, really important.
But
Right.
it'll be the risk and the economic issue versus what's the perceived benefit of being able to use your irrigation well.
Right.
I mean, and one could say, there's essentially no benefit to the public from anybody using an irrigation well. Because there's no benefit
Right,
from
well-
anybody irrigating.
well, I mean,
And
we
so
also-
and I'm not saying I know the answer to this, but the bar might be very low for the risk,
Well, we might,
given that the benefit is negligible.
well, but we might, do need to consider that there are entities which require irrigation for their economic survival. That would be things like garden centers,
Yes,
golf
yes.
courses that, and so, so as to not drive them out of business, there
That
needs
would
to
be a
some-
higher threshold than,
Right, there needs to be some
than a
consideration.
household.
Right.
No, a green lawn is very, very important to my mental health.
It might be, but
Just like,
Zero escaping.
has-
Zero escaping.
I've attempted to grow grass in one spot for the last 40 years, and I can't get anything going.
Oh,
well,
just
there you
plant
go,
ivy.
so there's no benefit.
No, that's invasive.
Okay.
All right,
It's great game.
okay. There is, we have a minute, but I think, well,
Can we
Can
do
we
the
even do
minutes, get them done?
we can do the minutes if I can find them. Is that from which
Those
one's-
are June
It's very
22nd.
thick,
June
very
22nd.
thick.
Oh, that's Concom's
I
minute.
actually carefully read them.
You carefully read them?
Yes, I did.
Wow,
And,
a lot of pages there.
yes, there are. Well, they are single-sided. And I have a bunch of what? What is this sentence supposed?
Right, I have not carefully read them. There are sufficient number of people here to
Yeah.
cover these.
Um,
So the minutes are June 22nd.
yeah. Do you want to hear my list of
Shorts.
Okay, top of page 2. A test pit within a reasonable area around the influence of the primary areas, and I'm wondering if that's the effluent of the SAS or something.
Within a reasonable area around, no, within a reasonable distance of the primary area?
Yeah, I don't know enough to know
Distance.
what might have been. So do we think influence might be effluent?
No, I think within a reasonable distance of the primary area and reserve.
Yes, that's what you said.
Okay.
Period. The unit should meet.
What is the primary area? Is
Okay,
that the
then,
SAS?
just, you got an SAS, you have your primary area, you got reserve. You should have, if it's new construction, you have to have by code 2 test pits in the primary, 2 in the reserve.
Got it.
They didn't have one at either, and I said, geez, there should
Yeah.
be at least something in an area of the primary.
Okay. And then, in the motion on that, oh, actually, it's on the next one, on 51 Cliff Road, the motion,
Here, hold on, can we, I'm just working my way down.
yeah, okay.
Before we get to fast page 2.
No, I'm still on page 2.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The bold,
Yep.
no other variance requested with standard set of conditions, and that the system meet the 10 milligrams per liter. There should be a comma, I think, and after new percolation tests that meets our standards, or something, because the perk tests weren't done correctly,
They weren't in the area,
in the correct place.
right.
So, and so it's not with follow-up perk testing, but that it be approved after the perk
Yes.
testing is done
Yeah,
and meets our requirements. next thing's on page 5, so
Okay,
let me
I
know
just
when you
wanna-
wanna. Yep, let me know when you want me to.
Page 4. Cause this is there's gonna be attorneys involved in this one, I imagine. Mr. Whitfield to clarify, this is not invoking the regulation and requires IA systems in the part of the regulation Mr. Rowland referenced. Explained that it is the fact that there are variances requested. The board is allowed to put conditions on variance that forget a degree, environmental protection.
So delete a degree of,
Yeah, that degree of, I mean, the quote I usually say is that you must prove that there's equal degree of environmental protection as is afforded full compliance with the law or the regulation. But I think just variance that ensure environmental protections are in place.
And I also, in that continued sentence, that Board of Health is mandated by the state to reduce nitrogen in coastal ponds.
Yeah,
So we're not mandated yet in freshwater ponds.
And is embayments the expression that we're supposed to be using
yeah,
for this,
certainly
rather than
proper.
ponds?
Yeah.
so would you like me to switch it to embayments?
Is that the term of art here?
It's just a synonym, I mean.
No, it's a
it's a
synonym, I
coastal
think.
pond.
Okay,
Because-
that's
Because
fine.
we had
I
a
don't-
coastal pond overlay, there was a coastal pond overlay district, so it's
Okay.
fine. Because,
No other further explanation needed.
we'll talk about it later, because I think there's a technical difference.
Okay. On the 5th full paragraph, Mr. Goldstone said, and then in the second
Page
sentence.
are you on?
Page 5.
Page 5, sorry. The tallest paragraph, which is sort of in the middle.
Yep.
He added that what has been changed in recent years is the fact that we are under a very strong, did you say expensive or expansive or extensive? Or do we care? Are you happy with expensive?
I have no idea.
Okay. And then 2 paragraphs down, Mr. Hoyfelder said someone in a sensitive area puts in an application with any variances, then that will be a trigger for possibly requiring inclusion of an IA system for approval, rather than a trigger for requesting inclusion. So change requesting to possibly requiring?
Yeah,
So we either require it or we don't.
page 7.
Oh, okay.
George.
George H.
oh.
Sorry.
You're on page 7?
Yeah, I'm reading really fast.
Oh, okay.
Because he is, this, George T. has comments for page 7.
Yeah, go ahead.
The third paragraph, the second line, they don't know, not they don't now.
Yeah,
And then the real meat of this whole thing, 2 paragraphs farther down, Mr. Goldstone added that he needs to speak in support of the health agent. The board did discuss this very issue and decided it was not going to be in the regulation. The regulations and their guidance are not a minimum, which I keep saying, but the law. And so I'm not saying you didn't say that.
Okay.
However, this really maybe is more for next Monday than today. So the regulation we passed was about new construction, and it wasn't about modifying things.
That is correct.
So it's not, we didn't pass a regulation that said if you modify something, you don't have to put in an IA. It just wasn't discussed, it was left,
It was-
we discussed it.
We
but
discussed it and
yes.
explicitly discarded it.
Yeah, yep, I'm coming to that. What I believe, what I recall is that we said, we don't know how to write a generalizable regulation that we think will work, that we can say in advance for all modifications that are gonna require variances, what is a specific rule, and that we're gonna have to sort it out on a case-by-case basis. I believe that's what we thought.
please understand that the regulation, as we discussed it when we were putting it together, was talking about the situation where somebody simply is either new construction or reconstructing their home. Now, no discussion came up whether somebody doing that also required variances. If we didn't have any discussion about that, the clear cut was, okay, you wanna redo your home, boom, go ahead, you can do it as long as you keep the
Right.
same number of
We need
bedrooms.
to hold this particular discussion for next Monday.
Okay.
But I,
Alright.
yes,
All
yeah,
I'm saying is that's
yeah,
what distinguishes what you're talking about.
Yeah.
right.
You are correct that we did not, we explicitly excluded people who were doing any reconstruction in their home. But variances are a different situation.
So one of the things, and this is something I want to encourage all of us to think about, and I have to say, I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I don't know what I think is the right path going forward. A thing would be to give Scott different directions about what he ought to tell people when he has questions asked of him, because that
Yeah.
was a big issue.
Yep.
But another thing is, this is a huge question that's been going to the Supreme Court of late, and has been a huge issue for a long time in US law. If you ask, say, what's the regulation for this situation? The way the laws are almost always written is, we don't know how to specify it, and we're gonna leave it up to a regulatory board of experts to decide how to implement this vague law.
Yep.
And there are people who think that is a horrible thing to do, and there are people who think that's the only way to do it. And I don't know, and this Supreme Court is trying to find its way into that. It's a really hard problem. I don't know the right answer, but one of the things, if there is a section in our regulations,
Is this?
I'll be able to tell you
Yeah,
in a
I know,
second.
but so we need to do our minutes.
Yeah, I know, I just want to, before I forget this, I just want to, section 15.4 about septic system location and construction. If, one of the things that Kevin brought up, that Amy was talking about, that you were talking about last time, that we're all talking about, is do we need to redo a regulation?
Yes.
And what I wanna bring up, and not really with these people that are gonna be here next Monday, is if we are, that we need to decide if we're gonna either, you could say redo that regulation or submit a new, talk about a new regulation
Yeah.
that's, covers this area. If we're gonna do that, and we're gonna do it soon, and come up with something, then I'd be willing to say, let these people do what they want, if we think we've been,
Okay.
you know.
Let's hold this.
Okay, but that's what I
We're
want
doing the
us
minutes.
to
We
think
need
about
to-
it.
We need
Yes.
to.
Yeah, that I've no more
I'm
comments on
gonna
the minutes.
say, you know, there's so much discussion about this particular case in the minutes that I don't feel comfortable without really going over it.
Okay,
So I have a motion to continue to look at these.
All
right.
Second.
motion and second to continue the minutes, sorry. We'll, how about we do it this way? I'll have everybody have their comments ahead of time, so we don't spend any
Yes.
time on it.
Yeah, and I've already done mine, I'm not gonna have anything
Okay.
new, so.
Just wanna be very careful with it because
Yeah.
I'm sure
Yeah.
that if it goes one way, there may be no discussion further, if it goes another way.
Right.
There may be an appeal, and we wanna present a very clear record.
Yes. Okay, one item before we adjourn, one item for future note, that came up, I saw it in the paper. The planning board, wants to change the mixed residential commercial overlay district, which is Mr. Cotter. And, it's currently restricted to sewered areas, and they're interested in expanding it to non-sewered areas, and requiring, and they wanted, I can't decide if they want information on the effectiveness of nitrogen reducing septic systems or whatever. So if they, I don't know if they've asked for information, but if they do ask for information, because this is a planning board hearing for an article, presumably that needs to be submitted to, on a tight timeline, to the warrant, which is the beginning of August. They may request information, and, George, if there was, I think Scott might turn to you, but if there was a way, if you had succinct information on the effectiveness of denitrification systems for,
Commercial.
well, it's overlay, mixed residential, commercial.
They'd be larger systems.
They'd be larger systems.
Yeah.
So, so we have some data on it, I just wanna give you a heads up that they may want information quicker than we have, a meeting. So,
You don't wanna stop the neighborhood.
I understand that, but I just,
There is one other issue I'd like the board to consider, is we've seen a couple of cases where people have come in to increase the flow to a system within a nitrogen-sensitive area and bring in a banner system to compensate for that. In the town's sewer regulations, everybody is entitled to at least 4 bedrooms or what they have. we should at least think about whether they're in nitrogen-sensitive areas should be a similar restriction. So somebody comes in, as a two-bedroom cottage, wants to go to 6 bedrooms. If that was going on the sewer, they would not be able to do that. They would only be allowed to go to 4. So somebody comes in and says, I wanna go to 6 bedrooms and I wanna use a bannered system. Can I do it to go from 2 to 6 bedrooms in a nitrogen-sensitive area? We have to think about,
Right.
because
That's a good,
it's very likely that they could do it without variances. And so they're merely only asking to enlarge their home, but if that, again, if we're gonna do any kind of parity with a sewer system
right,
in a nitrogen-sensitive area, the sewer system would not allow that beyond the 4-bedroom limit.
right.
And we haven't seen it yet, but we've seen a number by one particular engineer of expanding the use of the house and using a banner in a nitrogen-sensitive area, sometimes on very small lots. But in a sewered area, it doesn't matter what size your lot is, as long as you can fit 4 bedrooms, you'll be able to do it.
Right.
So maybe for parity with the
Yeah,
sewer
we should
regs,
think about this.
we ought to think about.
Okay.
That's an excellent idea. Right, is the sewer reg that way because of the limitations on discharge capacity, or we don't know?
I
or
think it was
doesn't
for
matter?
planning capacity, but I know it originated from, I can't think of his name now.
No one knows where it comes
Oh, I do.
from.
I know exactly where it comes from. Guy was from EPA, he was on, was the
Oh,
water,
yeah.
the wastewater superintendent.
Jerry Patemas.
Jerry
So
Patel.
he's the one that came up with 4?
He is exactly the person who came up with 4, because I argued, why the heck would you give somebody who had on the sewer, now a nice little cottage, now you're gonna blow it up to a McMansion? You're just gonna do it. And, I mean, I thought that that was not wise because of the capacity of the sewer, which now could actually double in an area such as Mar Vista,
Hmm.
Well, most of those are built as 3.
because there were a lot of 3s on that street. There were
Yeah.
some 2 cottages. I know there were a bunch of 2 cottages. Now there are, could be 4. So there's no limit except, hey, let's go up.
And I had heard that come up, by the way, in terms of the Great Pond Phase 1,
Yeah,
that anybody who has fewer than 4 bedrooms gets to have 4.
yeah.
I hope it doesn't.
Well,
but I
that
haven't
is
heard
the,
it.
That's the
that
rule.
is the rule.
Oh, it's already.
Oh, yeah, that's been the rule for a while.
It doesn't really add a drop of wastewater. It really doesn't. It doesn't.
I think
I
that
don't
it,
agree with
Well, it might, when it.
I think that
gets
once
sold.
you have something that's,
McMansions are used for 2 months a year.
yeah, well, I exaggerated by saying a mansion. 4-bedroom is
It's
not a
not
mansion,
I mean.
but it is definitely more Airbnb-ish. It's more rentable.
And it's
All right,
more saleable.
so this is a future
So
agenda
Yes.
item.
houses-
So
That's all I
let's
wanna
take
put
this,
on
let's take this as part of, an amended
the regulation.
septic regulation and, come up with some thoughts and do it reasonably less than a year.
But
Please.
parity with the sewer
Yeah.
regulation seems eminently reasonable.
We're gonna adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.